morning, everyone. First, I want to thank Axel Jiaoyan to provide me this chance to share with you about our study on the Tibetan Plateau. So first, a little bit of background, why we come to the Tibetan Plateau, what we study there. And when the topic of this conference is climate and human evolution, that's what we're all interested in. So in the past, human evolved for millions of years. During this process, we have a lot of physical and biological and behavioral changes. All these changes happened in a highly fluctuated climate changes background. And also, especially since 2 million years, human migrated out of Africa to Eurasia and other continents, so meet very different environments, including very many extreme environments, like very hot, very cold, and very high environments. When we talk about the high environments, high elevation environments, we know on the Earth now there are 3 high plateaus, including Tibetan Plateau, Baishiya Plateau, and the Andean Altiplano. So in these 3 high elevation regions, people have their special cultures, and also they adapted to the environments biologically differently. So to understand how human adapted to these high elevation environments, we need to do more archaeological studies, human. So among these 3 plateaus, Tibetan Plateau is the biggest, highest, and the most populated. So Tibetan Plateau is the ideal place for us to understand human adaptation to the high elevation environments. When we talk about the high elevation environments, that usually we mean that in these regions the oxygen concentration is low, and usually in most part of the plateau, cold and dry, and it provides challenges for human survival in these regions. I just show the concentration of oxygen changes according to the elevation. Where I'm from Lanzhou University. It's based in the northwest China. The elevation is 1,500. The oxygen concentration is less than 90%. Like Qinghai Lake, the elevation is 3,200. The concentration of oxygen is less than 70%. If we go higher, the concentration of the oxygen decrease very quickly. So all this oxygen concentration decrease provide challenges for humans. And also in the northwest part of the Tibetan Plateau, and most part of the plateau is cold and dry, which also results in the limited resources, plant resources and animal resources. Although the high elevation environments give challenges for human survivals, but we know that the Tibetans and the Sherpas lived on the Tibetan Plateau for generations. Their cultures are special, like they relied mainly on sheep, yak, and barley, and they even use yak dung as fuel to get heat and to cook food. So all these special cultures or behaviors, we want to know. We want to know how this developed and when it's developed, and when human first reached the plateau. To answer these questions, we focused on the east part of the Tibetan Plateau. So we have a big team to work on the plateau. This team is led by Professor Chen. He just left yesterday. And our team divided into 2 periods, the Neolithic and Bronze Age period and the Paleolithic period. So in the past, we have done some Neolithic, Bronze Age human occupation on the Tibetan Plateau and studied their subsistence strategies. And for the Paleolithic period, I focus on the northeast part of the plateau, and Li Hao, who is here also in this conference, he focuses on the southeast part of the plateau. In fact, he found some very new and exciting sites in this region. Today, I will talk about the northeast part of the plateau, what we found there and what studies we did. Before we go to the Paleolithic period, I just briefly introduce some of the what we know about the Neolithic and Bronze Age people on the Tibetan plateau. This paper is published in 2015, and our study focused on the northeast part plateau where the most of the Neolithic and the Bronze Age located. And based on the archaeobotanical studies, we found that agriculture spread on the plateau, spread onto the plateau very late, around 5,200 years. Millet agriculture first reached the low elevation regions of the plateau. And since 3,600 years, barley-based agriculture appeared in this region, and helped people moved up to the plateau upper than 3,000 meters. So we say that the agriculture helped people permanently occupy the Tibetan plateau. And very recently, in September, Professor Yang Xiaoyan, also in our team, she published a study on the site in Southern Plateau. It's called Mabucuo site. It's a Neolithic Bronze Age site dated to 4,400 to 4,000 years. And in this site, we found a lot of tombs and a lot of animal bone remains and plant remains. From this study, they show that those people relied mainly on fishing, and also they hunt birds, and also they have some millet, rice in the site or in their diet. This means that, and also it shows that they permanently occupy this site or this high elevation region, 4,400 meters. So it's a little bit different from the northeast part of the plateau. And there is another study published by another team. They studied the dental calculus from the human teeth, and it reveals that people started to use milk very early, 3,500 years. So these are the three main studies about the Neolithic and the Bronze Age human history on the plateau. So mainly we know that they used a lot of domesticated animals and plants. And yes, and how about the Paleolithic period? So on the Tibetan plateau, we don't have so many Paleolithic archaeological sites on the plateau. Before 2018, most of the sites are surface localities. So we only have limited reliable dates of these sites. Mainly they are dated to younger than 15,000 years. They are mainly microlithic sites. And in 2018, a site is found and published in Southern Plateau near Div site. The site, they found the blade technology tools, artifacts there shows that perhaps modern humans occupied this high elevation region, 4,600 meters, 40 to 30,000 years. So at that time, it is the earliest human occupation on these such high plateaus. And in recent years, including our teams, many teams found some new sites represented by those red dots, showing that human occupation on the Tibetan plateau is much earlier, as early as 200,000 years. It includes the Kusang site, and Pilo site, and Baishiya Karst cave site, and the GGF1 site. These two sites is studied by our team. And those sites are still under study, and so far we know that very few animal bones were found in this site. Not only these early sites, but also this sites we don't find many animal bones. So we know very little about human subsistence strategies on the plateau. Baishiya Karst cave is an exception. It is a cave site. The animal remains are rich and well preserved, provide us the chance to understand the human subsistence strategies on the Tibetan Plateau. So before we go to the subsistence studies, I introduce a little bit about this cave. So this Baishiya Karst cave site is in the northeastern plateau, something here. Yes, it's here. And the elevation is 3,280 meters. And in the 1980s, human mandible was found in this cave. This is the Baishiya Karst cave. At that time, we don't know it is, the founders don't know how old is it and whether it is human remains, human fossils. So since 2000, around after 2000, we started to study this mandible, and at the same time study the cave where this mandible was found, and confirmed that this cave is archaeological site, and there are more archaeological remains was found there. So to study this mandible and the site, there are many questions we want to answer, like who they are, when they were on the plateau, and how they lived there. There are so many questions. So besides the study of the mandible, we need to do excavations in the site, and we need to use many methods to answer these questions. To these methods and all these studies, including a big team, including our team and all our collaborators around the world. So first about the mandible. So this mandible was found by the local monk. So we don't know the context of this mandible. We try to answer how old is it and what it belongs to. So we use the U-series dating to date the carbonated crust on the mandible. On the mandible, the small crust was take out, and to do the urim dating, this work is done by Professor Shen, River Shen, and then we want to the results is 1,600 years old, and what species it belongs to. We did the paleoanthropological studies and the paleoprotein studies, and the paleoprotein studies provide us the most important information. It belongs to the Denisovans. So this mandible become the first mandible found outside of Denisova cave, and it is dated to 1,600 on the Tibetan Plateau. So it's very important because before this mandible, we know that we all get Denisovans perhaps distributed in East Eurasia, but no fossil evidences. Now we found the mandible in East Asia and on the Tibetan Plateau. And so far it is also the biggest Denisovan mandible. We get more morphological information of Denisovans from this mandible. And also that on the Tibetan Plateau, the Tibetan people and on the Tibetan Plateau, they have a special biological adaptation to the high elevation environments. They have the gene E+1, and although we don't have the nuclear DNA from this mandible extracted, but they are Denisovans. So it provides the possibility that the E+1 gene of the Tibetans perhaps get introgressed from the local Denisovans. And also this is very important for us to understand the complicated human evolution history in East Asia. We can compare this mandible to all the other fossils we found in East Asia, like Penghu-1 mandible and the Xujiayao mandible and teeth. So it provides very new information. And based on the comparison of the teeth found in Laos and the teeth on our mandible, this teeth is identified as a new Denisovan teeth. So far there are three Denisovan sites we know. And also this work is very important for the Tibetan Plateau. In the past, we know that the earliest human activity evidence is near Div-site 40 to 30,000 years. Now the mandible is 160,000 years. So which means that people spread to the Tibetan Plateau much earlier than we thought. And this one represents perhaps modern human. It's not surprising that we can spread to the Tibetan Plateau. But for the extinct human, like the Denisovans on the plateau, that's a big Okay, sorry. Okay, so we want to do more studies to answer these questions. So we studied the cave site, did some excavations in the site. We want to know more about the Denisovans. So we did excavation in the past years, and this is a cave. It's big, several hundred meters long, and we did excavation here in the entrance chamber. And we collect all the samples we could, including the lithic, animal remains. And based on the dating results and stratigraphy study and the sediment DNA study, we found that human occupied this site from 190,000 years to 30,000 years. And in some of in around 160 and 45 years, we found Denisovan DNA there. So we expanded the Denisovan occupation in this cave to the late Pleistocene. And at the same time, we found a lot of lithics and the animal remains. The next is about the animal remains studies. Denisovans, it seems, occupied high diversity environments. So how they adapted to the environments, different environments, is important and interesting. So mainly based on the animal remains from the excavation in 2018 and 2019, we did a zooarchaeological and paleoproteomic analysis and identified more than 2,000 pieces of bones. And during this study, we found a new Denisovan rib bone, and it is from layer 3, which is dated to 48 to 32,000 years. So far, it is the youngest Denisovan bone was found. And previously, we found the Denisovan DNA also in layer 3. So this time we provide the fossil remains, human fossil remains. So another finding from this study is that we built the fauna community composition of this site, and mainly from layer 11, about 200,000 years to the 30,000 years, the composition, the percentage of capillary increases, and in the early period there are some big animals, and later is dominated by medium and small-sized animals. And we also found a lot of cut marks, percussion marks on these bones. These bones include the birds and the carnivore and the rodents bones, means that all these animal bones is accumulated by human activity. And based on the cut marks, percussion marks, we also know that the human activity, human usage of these bones, including like skinning, dismembering, filleting, and bone marrow extraction. And they fully used the animal resources they can use. And also they used some of the bones to make tools, like the bone retarder and the expedient bone tools. And so a little bit of summary is that combined with the previous study, we know that Denisovans occupied the cave for a long time. And so far, there's no other evidence of other human groups in this cave, so there are only Denisovans lived in this cave for a long time. And from the animal remains studies, we know that they lived here during the last two glacial and interglacial periods. They used all the animal resources they could use and fully used these resources. And this basin perhaps provide a good refuge for them to stay for a long time. And to understand more about the human adaptation to the environment, we also did some environment studies. They are still on progress, so we need to do more work to do that, to understand the environmental background. And also we need to do more study on the lithics to understand their behavior. It's still also in progress too. And in fact, besides this site on the Tibetan Plateau, we know very little about the human subsistence strategies on the plateau. Okay, so these other two sites, the very limited information. This is the younger sites. This sites dated to 120 to 90. So, and the other two sites, there are almost no animal remains found in these two sites. So because I'm running out of time, so just a summary, I don't want to read it. Okay, thank you for your attention.